Hey gang, what's up? Good to see everybody. How's everyone doing today? We're going to jump right over to the House of Commons. Pierre Poilievre is speaking live right now. We've got other pieces that we'll jump back here and check out from the committee investigations that took place yesterday evening and this morning. We'll get into that. Anyhow, I'm kind of curious to see what Pierre has to say. Get your Canadian federal politics right here. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Great to see everybody. We're back in it. Should be a very interesting session. Let's kick this bad boy off. Let's go.
Sovereign. And we would be the ones writing our own destiny. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Should be the most affordable and autonomous nation on Earth. We have the biggest oceanic coastline. We're #1 for uranium, for potash, #4 for oil. We produce the 6th most natural gas anywhere on Earth. We have the most fresh water, the 6th most farmland per capita. And yet, somehow, we can't feed, fuel, or defend ourselves. It should be dirt cheap to live in Canada because we have the most dirt to build homes on, dig resources from, and grow food in. And yet, we are one of the most expensive places to use energy to buy homes or to buy food. In fact, food price inflation is now the highest in the G7 after a year of this Prime Minister promising to bring prices down. 2.2 million people line up at food banks. We have the most expensive real estate in the G7, and our energy costs are soaring while we can't get our own resources out of the ground and to markets. What's worse is our economy has become even more dependent over the last decade. $500 billion of net investment has fled to the United States of America. Canada had the worst economic growth of any G7 nation under this government. We have the worst investment. We, in fact, get $15,000 of investment per worker, while the Americans get $28,000, both measured in United States money. This has left us poorer, weaker, and more dependent on other countries. We all understand the problem. Canada's economy is paralyzed by the high cost and slow pace of our massive bureaucracy. Everybody agrees that the permitting times are too slow. And we know that the only thing that's standing away is this bureaucracy, because we have trillions of dollars of pension fund investment waiting on the sidelines or invested overseas, tens of thousands of construction workers ready to get to work, the most resources per capita in the world. The only thing standing in the way are permits, federal permits. Because these are interprovincial projects, they only require federal permits. Now, the Prime Minister's solution to the problem of too much bureaucracy is to create even more bureaucracy, is that we have too many agencies blocking resource development, so he creates a new agency to stack on top of it. We've got too many laws that stand in the way of safe and responsible resource development, so he creates even more laws. He's confusing the problem with the solution. Mr. Speaker, we don't need more signing ceremonies, more summits, more laws, more agencies, more corporate buzzwords, or more abracadabra. What we need from this Prime Minister is one thing. Get out of the way. Get out of the way and grant a permit. The unique power for interprovincial pipelines is federal under our Constitution, and the legal power is with the Prime Minister under Bill C-5. He only needs to get out of the way and grant the permits for these things to happen. We propose the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which will make us strong, self-reliant, and let us stand on our own 2 feet. It would repeal the anti-energy laws, C-69 and C-48, so we can ship energy off our coast. It would rapidly approve a pipeline to the Pacific to move $30 billion of our oil to overseas markets, bigger than the total exports to China in an entire year. It would eliminate the capital gains tax on reinvestments in Canada, causing an economic boom and bringing that $500 billion of investment back. It would require incentives and other rules in order to keep the new Canadian technology that we invent here in Canada. It would create bonuses for our provinces to open up their markets to free trade across Canada. This is a real, serious plan to make Canada the most affordable and autonomous country anywhere on Earth, a nation that's strong enough to stand on its own two feet and sovereign enough to never have to bow before any other nation. We call on all parliamentarians to rally to this mission because our country is worth the fight. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Chief Government Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, I've been listening to the same rhetoric, the same speech over and over for years now. We saw this entire opposition motion in a platform that the Conservatives put forward. The Leader of the Opposition ran on everything in this motion in the last election, but he lost. Canadians chose not to go with what he was proposing. So my question to him is very simple, and I hope he uses the opportunity to be a little bit self-reflective. Has he learned anything from April 28th that would suggest maybe he should do something different? And if he did, what is that?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal member seems to be astonished that we would say the same thing after the election that we said before the election. And I can understand why he finds that counterintuitive, because the Liberals do exactly the opposite. The Liberal Prime Minister promised that he was going to get a deal with the Americans by July 21st. There's still no deal. He said there'd be counter tariffs. There are no counter tariffs. He said he'd spend less. He's now spending $90 billion more, having doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit. He said that there would be more investment. Investment has actually gone down. He said he would build, baby, build, but in fact, he has not approved a single solitary pipeline or removed a single anti-development bill. They do the opposite of what they promised before the election. We keep our word.
Questions et commentaires.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Vachères. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the Opposition Leader.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see that for the Opposition Leader and for the Conservative Party, because, of course, they are from the same party and share the same vision, they link together oil production and sovereignty. I don't think that speaks to Quebecers. When Quebecers talk about sovereignty, I don't think they're thinking about oil production. Maybe they're thinking about it as a reason to leave the country, but not beyond that. Now, this government has come into power and they have ended the individual carbon tax. They have undermined electric vehicle encouraging provisions. They've put in place Bill C-5, which allows them to get around all sorts of environmental regulations. This Liberal government has even signed an agreement with Alberta on pipelines. So here's my question for the Opposition Leader. Does he get the sense that the Liberals are eating the Conservatives' lunch, forcing them to become more and more radical? I find it funny, Mr. Speaker, that the Bloc views Canadian sovereignty as radical. This idea that we would actually use our own resources instead of depending from other countries is just too radical for the Bloc Québécois. They would prefer that we import American oil instead of using oil produced in Canada, which helps to fund, yes, health, education, and infrastructure in Quebec. For the Bloc, that's just much too radical. They think it's radical to let consumers choose what car they drive instead of imposing electric vehicles on rural Quebec where they're not the right tool for the job. The Bloc believes in taxing gasoline and diesel in rural Quebec, regions where conventional energy is the only possible option. It is not radical to take control, and it is not radical to become maîtres chez nous, masters in our own home.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a few days ago, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of the Stephen Harper Conservative government. And after a decade of that government being in power, we left with a balanced budget and what the New York Times referred to as the richest middle class in the world. Mr. Speaker, I just would ask our honourable leader to reflect on what we did well under that government that led to those circumstances that seem so distant now.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition with a brief response.
Thank you very much to the honourable member for his important role in the Harper government in creating, of course, the richest middle class in the world, as so declared by the ultra-liberal, internationally famous New York Times in 2015. Can you imagine how today, if somebody said that, they would be laughed off the stage? Here we are a decade later, and housing costs are the most expensive in the G7. Food inflation is the worst in the G7. We have the worst, the Liberals have given Canada the worst economic growth in a decade. $500 billion of net investment has left. All of these things have worsened since this Prime Minister took office. But Mr. Speaker, it doesn't have to be this way. We demonstrated it before. The best is yet to come.
Resuming debate. Reprise du débat. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be splitting my time with the member from LaSalle-Verdun. Mr. Speaker, it's great to be back in Parliament. I think it's important to begin by taking stock.
All right, gang, we're going to flip over here now. We're going to drop over and watch some committee action that we have recorded. Let's get right into it. Got this queued up, I think.
Bear it for 6 minutes.
Here we are.
What specific evidence-based risks justify urgent federal intervention of the kind that you've suggested? And how do we avoid a situation where the policies that are made are driven by fear instead of what the actual situation on the ground is, based on perhaps the examples or the evidence that you'd be able to share with us?
Sure. So far, we're seeing a bunch of early warning signs, everything from chatbots talking teenagers into suicide, or whether it be job impacts among the youth, or scams and record levels of scams and AI-powered cyber attacks. These are in themselves they are important, they need to be dealt with, but they're not in themselves a justification for whole of government action. However, why they matter is where they're headed. Right now, we have teenager AI, very simple systems, relatively simple systems, I should say. What all the leading AI labs are actively building, but if you go to their website, they're saying we are building smarter than human AI systems. According to their CEOs, according to a lot of experts, including the engineers who left these organizations as whistleblowers because they don't trust them, also say yes, 2 to 5 years on smarter than human AI is possible. And so the reason why governments need to act currently and be proactive is really the fact that we may not have much time to prepare for the much bigger risks to come. And given that it will require global solutions, and global solutions take forever to put in place, even if we have 20 years, we're in a race against time. On the point of hope and fear, I fully agree. We can't, I'm doing what I'm doing because I believe there are still solutions and because I think there are positive ways forward. But we can't let fear paralyze us, and we can't let tell ourselves that AI is no good at all, because there are a lot of really good applications of AI, healthcare, energy, all that kind of stuff. So there's I think it's very important to be clear-minded, neither enthusiastic nor pessimistic about AI. Just be very clear-eyed about what's coming and how we can prepare.
Is there more than one strategy that needs to be employed when we look at some of the real effects that we're seeing from the use of this new gen or teenage generation of AI, and one of the most real effects, some of the most real effects that we've seen, of course, are news reports about language models counseling people to die by suicide, to take their own lives, vulnerable people. We've seen also a rise in the creation of child sexually exploitive material and deep fakes using children, and that is the worst kind of deep fake, but it's not the only kind. It's happening to public figures and also to anyone who has a picture online, and really to anyone whose likeness can be described to a language model. So these are some of the real world consequences that we're seeing today. those go along with, you referenced the effects on the job market for youth, for entry-level jobs. What's the answer, or is it a series of measures that need to be taken? Is this a question where, when we talk about deepfakes, where individuals where we need to update criminal law so that individuals are held personally responsible for their actions in the creation of this unacceptable material that is not intended to be covered by free speech laws or freedom of expression, and goes well beyond that? It's victimizing individuals. Is it instead that we need to pass laws where it's incumbent on the tech companies to ensure the safeguards are in place, or is it both?
Yes, both. I do think improvements to the criminal code to be able to deal specifically with deepfakes would help. I would also say, and what witnesses before me have said before, current laws could go a lot further than they currently are in terms of protecting Canadians. If we gave more resources to the current regulators to be able to apply them in the context of AI, that could go a lot. It'd be a much faster way and possibly more effective way of getting protections in place. In terms of the responsibilities for technologists, I do think it's very hard to stop a teenager in their basement in Russia from creating a deepfake of somebody. However, you can tell Google that if you want to do operations in Canada, you have to take down deepfakes within a certain amount of time, so that the image itself is created, it doesn't get spread, and it doesn't harm people's reputations. So I do think yes. So yes, strongly to both.
Right. I would just say in the last 10 seconds that with all of the potential risks and how catastrophic they can be, we might first have to address these very real and serious challenges like the ones that we just talked about. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witness. You cited in your testimony AI chatbots, and I want to drill down a little bit on that topic, specifically as it pertains to youth. First of all, I take it you would agree that this is an area where there is a need for regulation. Okay. Now, before a U.S. Judiciary Subcommittee hearing last fall, as well as in other reports, there is data from the U.S. From Common Sense Media that 72% of teens in the U.S. have used an AI companion at least once. Do you have any data for Canada? I would take it would be similar.
I think it's similar. I haven't seen exact numbers, but yes, yeah.
Okay. Now, you were asked in general about some of the AI harms, just looking specifically at chatbots. Would you elaborate on some of those harms to youth?
Absolutely. Well, so the whole relationships and mental health piece is huge because we're basically doing this giant experiment with our kids, introducing these AI companions into their lives, and we don't know what that'll do for their ability to socialize, what they'll do for their ability to work together. We're already seeing a lot of mental health concerns, and I'm sad the other witness wasn't here because he is definitely a lot more experienced in this area. Yeah, I mean, we see like AI addiction in terms of like kids can't give up on it because these systems are so pleasing and so sycophantic. They always tell you what you want to hear, that they get caught in these loops and going down these dark holes. So there is, I mean, we're seeing in live, a live experiment with this, and we're still to see what the long-term effects will be. But it is a very concerning development because these are key moments in their development, and if their mental health and if their learning is being messed up with, then that's a problem.
Yeah, and these systems are trained based on the entire internet. Is that fair? Is that accurate? So that would include everything from suicide forums to porn sites to other harmful content, and this will inevitably and is making its way into these chats that youth are having.
Yes, I think, some of the companies are making efforts to limit what data goes into it, but the problem is the more general the model, the more capable it is. So the more you train it on a variety of information, the more it understands how the world fits together. So I can't speak to exactly what data is going into the models, for example, with Gemini or ChatGPT, but the fact that they have been talking, teenagers into suicide, and the fact that they do occasionally, produce instructions on how to build a chemical bomb, suggests that they have been trained on very dangerous material.
Well, and would you agree that what compounds the challenge in terms of some of the risks and the ability for parents to detect that their loved one is being exposed to sexually explicit or harmful content is that these are often invisible, and in fact there is no transparency, but you're even engaging with AI in some instances.
Well, and a lot of kids prefer to talk to the ChatGPT because it feels safer than to talk to a parent. They're not aware of the privacy concerns, and they're not aware that these systems are not as reliable or as hopefully as wise as the parent is. So yes, it is. It's a very rapidly evolving problem with a lot of ways it can go sideways, and we're seeing some impacts already, and we expect to see more.
Okay. Yeah. Now, there in the fall was a bipartisan bill introduced in the U.S. Senate, introduced by Senators Hawley and Blumenthal, the GUARD Act. Are you aware of that?
Somewhat, yes, yeah.
Okay. So, in short, at a high level, it does three things. It would ban AI companions for minors. It would mandate AI chatbots disclose its non-human status, and it would provide new penalties for companies that make AI for minors that solicits or produces sexual content. I'd be interested in your thoughts on those three components.
Those are broadly the directions you want to take in terms of protections, liability, and yeah.
And I would also note, consistent with the need for transparency, there was a report that was submitted recently to the government's AI task force by one of its members that calls for, among other things, with respect to AI products, that there be visible labeling, source transparency requirements, metadata, and digital watermarking. Are those measures you would also support?
Absolutely. People should be able to know that they're interacting with an AI system, and it's not always obvious right now, and it'll be harder and harder as time goes on. So yes, labeling is a bare minimum, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Ms. Church, for 5 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Tesseri-Lallier. Question for you, maybe just picking up on some of my colleagues' questions. I'm also concerned very much about the impact of AI socially on kids in particular. And one of the things that I noticed in your white paper was that part of your approach to building Canada's resilience and protecting, I guess, online safety was around the concept of requiring AI labeling and banning unacceptable capabilities. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the labeling in particular and how you see that developing, and maybe how that could be useful for us.
Yes. So labeling, I mean, there are a bunch of ways to go about it, and we're, I guess, agnostic as to the exact technical path. But certainly, it's something that could be developed as a global standard. And like, for example, the Internet Protocol, which helped the Internet happen, is a global standard. Same thing with labeling. It could be, I've heard proposals, for example, having Unicode, basically the language behind the text, basically be labeled as AI, so that a computer would automatically know if a letter is written by AI or not. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of solutions like that, for example, that could happen. Ultimately, it's going to take probably some government impetus to force these companies to actually do it, because it will be a pain to actually label, and there will always be the challenge of, even if you label a piece of text, somebody can take a photo of it and copy over to their computer, and now suddenly it's no longer labeled. So it is. It's the kind of thing where you can't, labeling won't stop misuse in that sense, but it can, if you catch somebody using AI that isn't labeled, that gives you an opportunity to take action. So it's not a full solution on its own, but it's a step in the direction towards giving the incentives for people to actually use AI correctly.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me what that would even look like as a user, as somebody who is on the internet and social media regularly, what would I see as a consumer? How would that label be applied?
There are a bunch of ways to go about it. I mean, some, for example, would even say something like, font color. So you're reading text and you see if it's in a certain color, oh, that's AI. Same thing with like voice over the radio. If there's a certain tone in the background, you hear, oh, that's AI. There are, again, like there's 1,000 different technical ways to go about it, but it would have to be something where instinctively, as soon as the user sees it, oh yes, this is AI, and have that be a global standard across the world. And there is, there are. The logo of the four-letter star, you'll see that around in various things. It's kind of a step in the right direction, but there is, we're at the very beginning of basically a very big complex problem, it will take a clear direction from government around the world, basically, that this is required and that we expect this of companies who are building AI.
And when you talk about prohibiting other unacceptable capabilities, just to use the language from your white paper, what type of capabilities are you talking about? Can you expand a little bit on that? I mean, obviously, we're very concerned at the moment. We brought forward criminal legislation to deal with things like deep fakes. But are there other capabilities that you would particularly encourage us to focus in on?
Yes. Well, so, I mean, to mirror the EU AI Act for categories of unacceptable, high, medium, in the unacceptable category, these are systems that, for example, refuse to be shut off, systems that deceive the user, systems that will modify themselves without notice. So, for example, if you give an AI system a task of doing something and it calculates that it needs to modify itself in order to achieve that task, that should be an unacceptable capability because suddenly your system is a very different system than we created and the risk profile changes dramatically. Another one is autonomous self-replication. So you ask your system to do something and it calculates it needs to make a bunch of copies of itself on different servers so that if the first server it's on goes under, it can still keep running. That's a problem because suddenly your model is no longer on your computer, it's also on 10 other different computers and you don't necessarily have access to them. There's a whole bunch of like in our recommendations for the AI and Data Act that we go into detail as to which are the biggest ones. Unprompted self-modification, commandeering of resources if your model starts stealing in order to achieve this task. All these things are behaviors we're starting to see happen in test settings, and they are, if we allow that, then we're very much in a vulnerable position.
Right. I mean, one of the things I'm very interested in as well is just establishing a duty of care for these platforms. I mean, it's a legal concept that I think belongs here, and certainly there needs to be ways that we're putting guardrails on, particularly what children are exposed to, and ensuring that in some of the situations that you've raised that there's a clear liability for when AI models are presenting incorrect or very harmful information, especially to kids.
Well, and liability has to be with those who understand best how these systems work, and I think that's where the top talent there is at Google and Meta and the rest should be responsible for the behavior of their models even after deployment, because you can't ask a teenager or somebody who doesn't know anything about AI to know what the harms are and how to use it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Monsieur.
Your government has increased the Canada Infrastructure Bank's budget by $10 billion.
So here we have a couple of rounds with our housing minister, Gregor Robertson, the former hack mayor of Vancouver. He's a real disappointment. We've got Leslyn Lewis, who has got her doctorate in law. She's a doctor lawyer. And yes, it's going to be interesting. She's going to cut them up.
While expanding its role into AI-enabled digital infrastructure. Can you point me to a specific legislation where Parliament explicitly approved expanding the Canada Infrastructure Bank's mandate from traditional infrastructure like bridges, roads, water systems into AI, cloud, and digital systems?
Through the chair, thanks to the member for the question. The CIB to date has indeed focused on maybe what we call traditional infrastructure, as you mentioned. Given the growth opportunities that we have as a country, and given the scale of opportunity with projects of national interest right now, whether they be in energy or they be in technology like artificial intelligence, Canada is positioned to lead in these sectors, and the Infrastructure Bank is a great tool for investing in the infrastructure required to make sure these industries can scale and be successful, not only creating jobs in Canada, but creating opportunities with export markets to grow our economy.
Thank you for the answer. Minister. So I take from that that there is no legislation that has approved this expansion of $10 billion, and this has not come before Parliament also. AI services have the potential to drastically alter how Canadians access government services. Who decided that AI and digital services systems now qualifies as infrastructure, and why was that decision not brought to Parliament or in a standalone bill?
Through to the member, with the Canada Infrastructure Bank, those priorities are in priorities letters, and then part of the corporate plan. Also, in the budget policy statement is where the 35 to 45 billion increase was, but the legislation does not have the expressed purposes of the funding. They're in the priorities letters and then the corporate plan of the CIB.
Thank you, Minister. Now, before approving that $10 billion increase to the CIB budget, what assessment was
Thank you so much, Ghost of a Chance. That's amazing.
Conducted before even producing those letters on how AI-enabled infrastructure financed through the Canada Infrastructure Bank or private sector even would affect workers, the users, and vulnerable Canadians?
Through the chair, I think if we look at the broader purpose of the Canada Infrastructure Bank, it is to leverage private sector investment into sectors in Canada that enable our economy to grow, to create jobs, and there have been many benefits to Canadians, particularly vulnerable Canadians, as we've been building housing infrastructure, funding that through the Infrastructure Bank, as well as broadband for remote communities across the north. We've been investing on the Infrastructure Bank has invested in energy infrastructure for remote communities to make them more energy secure. So many investments to date have already achieved that purpose of growing our economy, but also serving more vulnerable communities.
Minister, as the government services become more digitized and AI-enabled infrastructure through CIB is financed, what protections exist for the public sector workers whose jobs may be automated, reclassified, and eliminated because of AI tools?
Through the chair, at this stage, artificial intelligence obviously offers enormous opportunities for businesses across Canada to be more efficient and scale. We see enormous growth in that industry alone. Obviously, the investment globally and in Canada has been very significant in AI. Canada needs to be a leading country in terms of the AI industry globally. We want to make sure we're part of that. In this case, we want to make sure we are leveraging all of the tools we have as government, whether it's with public financing, but that public financing needs to leverage private capital to invest and grow these the industries and benefit the many other industries that are deploying AI to make themselves more productive and efficient.
Minister, my question was specifically related to the protections of workers when AI displaces them, but I'll move on. Will AI systems, we've heard a lot of complaints, members of Parliament receive complaints from seniors who are having trouble even accessing benefits because of digitization. Will AI systems financed through the Canada Infrastructure Bank be used for any benefits eligibility decisions?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of the specific purposes and technologies that will flow from investments by the Infrastructure Bank into that sector. I think those are down the line in terms of outcomes. Initially, it's about making sure that the infrastructure can exist and serve Canadians. The whole purpose of this is public benefit. That is at the core of what the Infrastructure Bank is mandated to do.
So speaking of serving Canadians and public benefit, can you point me to a legal guarantee in any statute or regulation that will guarantee that no Canadian will lose benefits, employment opportunities, or access services without a timely and meaningful human review of AI-influenced decisions? Is that something that your government has contemplated, Minister?
Through the chair, I would urge the member to take those questions forward with some of my colleagues that are working more specifically on delivering those services in the departments that do that work. My focus is, in this case, with the oversight of the Infrastructure Bank, attracting investment, attracting private investment into Canadian infrastructure that serves the public.
Thank you. I would note that housing starts are up a little bit in Canada across the board. And that is good news. I heard the Liberal members talking about that. That's great news. Interestingly enough, they've fallen off a cliff in places like the GTA and Vancouver. And of course, one of the main reasons for that is because those are two regions of the country that have particularly high development charges and local fees and charges. And so one of the things that came up in the election campaign and that the Prime Minister promised to do was to address the issue of these outrageously high development charges, which we now know are halting starts. And so he promised to cut them in half, and yet we've seen nothing about that. Why is that?
Through the chair, thanks to the member for the question. With housing starts, I agree with you. We see it's some good results overall for Canada last year. And some regions have been struggling. Their numbers are down. Toronto, in particular, obviously significantly down. Vancouver is down 3% last year, but there are signs that it's soft for the coming years. We'll keep a close eye on that, but we've also seen good growth of housing starts in many regions across Canada, particularly in Quebec and Alberta. That we need to keep focused on seeing success there and ensuring that we're getting more affordable housing built. And development charges are certainly a part of the challenge, particularly in Ontario and BC. The approach we are taking as government is with the Build Communities Strong Fund and ensuring that that a portion of that funding, there's $51 billion that are proposed there, of investment into infrastructure. A portion of that fund is for provinces and territories to match and then bring down development charges, show that the development charges in those provinces are reduced.
Is that funding then, through that fund, is that funding contingent upon those municipalities and those provinces cutting their development charges in half?
That funding is contingent on reducing their development charges by the amount of the funding that's being advanced. And being matched by the provinces or territories.
When do you suppose that will occur?
Well, we have to get Parliament's support for the Building Community Strong Fund within the budget process that we're in now.
Just for the record, housing starts, sales are down 43 to 49% in the GTA. And I would suggest that arguably the biggest supply gap for housing in this country happens to be in the GTA. And if that is the case and housing starts are dropping precipitously, we need to be building, as the CMHC tells us, close to 500,000 units a year, and we're building 259,000. We're building really none in Toronto, none in the GTA, and very few in the Lower Mainland. In fact, builders of homes are laying people off. It's already happening. And so not only will the government not be, collecting huge GST checks off of these new homes, but you're going to be losing jobs in this industry. So, you indicated that on one of these podcasts that big sweeping changes are a little bit risky, like cutting the GST on all new homes under $1.3 million, and that you would try these little things to see what would happen. How many jobs should be lost before we do the big things?
Through the chair, we are doing big things with Build Canada Homes. This is the largest single investment in affordable housing in a budget that we've seen in Canada, and that is scaling up the construction of affordable housing.
Can you?
Which is
Sorry,
what Canada
I need you
needs
to define
first
big
and
things
foremost.
for me. How many units have you announced with Build Canada Homes so far?
So in the first couple of months, we have over 7,500 homes that are now enabled, and tens of thousands more that are working their way into the system that will be announced in the coming weeks.
How will Build Canada Homes help us get to 500,000 units a year?
500,000 is what CMHC has, based on the research, estimated as the number that we need to build to catch up for decades of not building enough housing in Canada. So that's a long-term goal, is to scale up construction. We have to do construction differently. We have to use modern methods of construction so we can build faster and more affordably. And we also have to ensure that we are hitting those affordable targets first and foremost. If we are not building more non-market affordable housing, we're going to continue to have the huge challenge we have with homelessness and the challenges we have for young people affording affordable
But you cannot
homes.
sacrifice market housing in the process.
Mr. Itchison, you will be up again, I see.
Can you give me top-line numbers? How many units does that represent in those 400 proposals?
Okay, next we have Mr. Bauer.
And welcome, everyone, and Happy New Year to all of you. Before I defer to my colleague, MP Larry Brock, I'd like to make a couple of comments with respect to not just what my colleague, Mr. Housefather, just said, but in particular with respect to tomorrow, which is when we mark the 81st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And this mark has been designated by the international community as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I'll share a personal story that I've previously shared in the provincial legislature. My family is partially from Ukraine and partially from Russia. And my great-great maternal grandparents were Ukrainian Jews from Odessa. And in October of 1941, Joseph and Rosalia Rosenfeld were executed by the Nazis in the courtyard of their Odessa family home. One of the first things my family did when we first visited the Holy Land is my mom went to the Yad Vashem Museum. It's the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, and noted the Rosenfeld's name. For many Jews, like myself, the Holocaust is not just an abstract or a theoretical concept. It's a reality that many in my community deal with for many years, and it's very instructive to us in much of what we do. And not just in terms of the welfare and safety and security of the Jewish people, but the welfare and safety of security of all people. When we read about the horrors of what's transpiring in Iran, with reports this morning in the New York, in one of the New York newspapers of a credible report of over 35,000 protesters, of 35,000 Persians killed in the last 2 weeks alone, it is horrifying. And that brings me to the point I want to make, is that too often, many in this building, while very well-intentioned, and I want to be very, very clear, I respect all of my colleagues, and I never impute any negative intention when it comes to combating hate or anti-Semitism in particular. But regretfully, I have come to believe, witnessing the events of the last couple of years, that when many use the phrase "never again," they use it more as a platitude. They don't really mean it. And I would say that might be an allegation that may apply to more than one of the recognized parties. Mr. Housefather was correct by mentioning the weekly events in the riding of York Centre, specifically my home in North York, about a kilometer from where I live, at the very intersection that my family first dwelled in when we came to Canada, the intersection at Shepherd and Bathurst. And I invite every single member here, every staffer, every official, to come and join me in North York on a Sunday at Shepherd and Bathurst and see what goes on. We're a group of masked men and women. They don't just stand at the northeast corner of the intersection because the police decided that, they're going to segregate both sides. But aside from the fact that they stand at the northeast corner of the intersection, in front of the very building that welcomed me to Canada, and chant incitement to violence every week, chat for intifada every week, encourage people to a violent revolt every week, and seemingly nothing is being done. We had the Director of Legal Services for the NCCM here during hearings on this bill. I think her testimony spoke for itself in terms of the definition of the word intifada and whether she would encourage, some sort of legal action or criminal action with respect to that. This is an organization that received in the last couple of years a considerable amount of money from this Liberal government. We had the Toronto Police. We had the Toronto Police here during the bail hearing who said, look, we are going to mark the International Holocaust Remembrance Day tomorrow, and we're all going to tweet never again. And I would say, I would invite everyone who's unwilling to really implore law enforcement to do the right thing here. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. My constituents right now are threatened in their homes. To say, no, we are not going to tolerate this. We have existing laws on the book. We insist that the Toronto Police Board, that Mayor Olivia Chow enforce the law and protect Toronto's Jewish community. And that when we say never again, we actually mean never again. I'm very grateful to my colleagues for the deference I received here, and I'm going to defer my time to MP Larry Brock.
Thanks, Mr. Baber. I had Mr. Lawton and Mr. Brock. You both sort of put your hand up at the first time. I leave it to you two to decide who goes first. Okay, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair. And much like my colleague, Mr. Baber, my colleague, Mr. Housefather, it's good to be back. Thankful that we are here to study three important bills. I trust everyone had a peaceful and relaxing break. I also want to welcome back the department officials. I know this has been a challenging exercise for you. I'm optimistic that 2026 will usher in a fresh approach to how we get things done here at Justice. As I said, when I first accepted the position of Vice Chair, I think it was obviously it was a different chair at that time, Mr. Chair, but I often said my experience has always been one of deep respect for everyone here at Justice. We deal with extremely important pieces of legislation and policy and tradition, at least from my perspective, going back to September of 2021, has been extremely collaborative. And I'm hoping that that is going to continue. But clearly we're facing an impasse. And it's an impasse that, in my view, should have never come to this. When I listen to the messaging from the government, specifically the messaging from Sean Fraser, Canada's Justice Minister and the Attorney General, he often reflects about the quality of time that he spent engaging with stakeholders, particularly from the Jewish community here in Canada, but other stakeholders, policing, victim advocacy rights, etc., all of which formed, with the direction and the assistance of his department officials, formed the drafting of Bill C-9. And in Bill C-9, as it's currently stated, there was no specific reference to the government intending to remove the religious exemption that has been codified in the Criminal Code of Canada for over 4 decades. No mention at all. No indication in any of the press releases or the technical briefings that parliamentarians receive during the initial debate in the House at second reading. No mention at all from any member of the Liberal Party of Canada that this would be ultimately their stated intention. Now, you contrast that to my friend and colleague, Monsieur Fortin, who made it abundantly clear, as did members of the entire Bloc Québécois during debate, but particularly during the meetings that we held on C9, the witnesses that gave evidence, responded to all questions, and Monsieur Fortin, on a regular and consistent basis, would always seek input from those stakeholders as to their position on the removal of the religious exemption. Now, I may be wrong in this assessment, and if I'm wrong, I will apologize to any particular member of the Liberal Party of Canada, because I've done a number of interviews, I've written a number of articles, I've posted on social media, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I don't recall during the meetings that we had on C9 any particular member, the core Liberal members and their subs from time to time, ever exploring the issue of removing the religious exemption. I could be wrong, but I don't recall that ever being raised by any member of this committee, with the exception of Monsieur Fortin. But then what happened? As we progressed closer and closer to our Christmas break, knowing that we were making progress with respect to clause by clause. But we reached an impasse.
Gang, we're going to cross over to question period now. They're doing their statements, so we're going to check that out. Let's get this up and going.
Vehicles, flooding our market while getting nothing concrete in return for our auto sector. No permanent tariff relief for Windsor, and zero protection for Canadian auto jobs. Windsor's the backbone of Canada's auto industry. Thousands of families depend on those jobs, yet this deal undercuts the very companies investing in Windsor. Even Canada's auto sector is warning us that this creates uncertainty and threatens long-term stability. Canada deserves trade deals that protect our auto workers, not deals that sell them out.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today we remember the victims of the Islamophobic attack on January 29th in Quebec City: Mamadou Toularebari, Ibrahima Bari, Abu Bakr Fati, Khaled Ben Kamouni, Azzedine Soufiane, and Abdul Karim Hassan. 6 lives cut short in a place of peace and contemplation, a mosque. 6 families torn apart. 17 children left orphaned. My thoughts are also with the survivors. This tragedy reminds us of an essential truth. Hatred feeds on silence, prejudice, and the trivialization of hate speech. Yes, today, because racism may be masked by respectable discourse, but it remains just as destructive. We have a collective responsibility to name it, denounce it, fight it, and build a society based on dignity, respect, and our common humanity. In the face of hatred, silence is no longer an option. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
When I was growing up, I learned a core Canadian value. Canada succeeds when people are free to make choices for themselves. In Davos, the Prime Minister signaled different values. He believes markets shouldn't follow people's choices, but be set by regulators, banks, and global institutions. He believes individual choice should be replaced by imposed outcomes decided by a small group of elites. But that philosophy rejects a core Canadian value: freedom. Freedom like the family in my riding who took a failing plastics factory bought by their grandfather in the 60s and turned it into a world-class producer of anti-doping kits for the Olympics. Freedom like the ugly potato day at the Heppel farm in Surrey, where thousands of kilos of wonky potatoes grocery stores don't want are given away for free to families who absolutely do. Those ideas don't come from Davos. They come from free Canadians solving real problems in the real world. Now that's a real Canadian value you can take straight to the bank.
Good job. The Honourable Member for Pickering, Brooklyn.
Mr. Speaker, January we celebrate Tamil Heritage Month. Earlier this month in India, I saw firsthand the global strength of Tamil spirit when I spoke at the World Tamil Diaspora Day in Chennai. Tamil is the oldest speaking classical language in existence and is spoken by over 75 million people globally. Canada is now home to the largest Tamil diaspora outside of Asia, a community that has flourished here for decades. Tamil Canadians live in every province and territory, strengthening our national fabric each day. I invite all members to join me in celebrating this vibrant heritage with Tamils in your communities. Yadam Ure Yavarum Kurlir. Every town is my hometown and everyone is my kin. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I heard over and over again the new attempt at a temporary solution on inflation. How can this government justify being responsible for driving up inflation and then giving a benefit because people cannot afford to buy groceries and their essentials on their own? Think about what this message actually is. Here, let the Liberal government help you pay for groceries and basic necessities because of the Liberal policies making it more expensive. When will they learn to stop trying to buy their way out of problems? Learn the lesson. Get rid of the taxes and the splash the cash spending driving inflation. Cut fuel standards tax, the industrial carbon tax, and the food packaging tax. And stop the billions of dollars in misspent money. Fiscal responsibility keeps inflation in check. When will they take our advice and implement real solutions to the affordability problem in Canada? When?
The Honourable Member for Rimouski-La Matapidia. Mr. Speaker, Quebec has lost a great explorer. Robert Grenier, a leading figure in underwater archaeology, has passed away. He worked for Parks Canada since the 1960s and developed expertise that was recognized worldwide and was even praised on the cover of National Geographic. His greatest achievement was the discovery off the coast of Labrador of the San Juan, a 16th century whaling ship that proved the presence of the Basque in America even before New France. He also initiated the research that led to the discovery of the ships from John Franklin's ill-fated expedition in the Arctic. The man, once compared by Minister to Indiana Jones, certainly shared his charisma and lust for life. The difference was that he fought at UNESCO to protect sunken treasures from adventurers. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I offer my condolences to his wife Caroline, his children Pierre and Mathilde, who courageously accompanied him through his illness until his soul set sail one last time. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Mississauga, Erin Mills.
Mr. Speaker, it's with a heavy heart that I rise today to honour Stephen Biss, a friend, a respected member of our Mississauga Erin Mills community who passed away suddenly and peacefully. Stephen was a dedicated community builder who believed in public service. I loved our conversations about public health and the environment and so many more. He gave more than 4 decades of his life to the practice of criminal law, and even in retirement, he continued to mentor, advise, advocate, always standing up for others. I was fortunate to know Stephen as a friend, and I will always value the warmth, his insight, and the genuine love for his community. On behalf of Mississauga Erin Mills, I extend my deepest condolences to his daughters Karen, to his daughters Michelle and Renee, to his wife Karen, and the entire family. The legacy that he has will live on forever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, Skeena Bulkley Valley is ready to build. Conservatives worked with government to pass Bill C-5 so the Prime Minister could approve projects quickly while cutting red tape. But after a year of speeches, no single project has been approved. No barriers have been removed. Skeena Bulkley Valley is already contributing and is asking for a chance to invest, build, and work. Stewart Rail and Port Expansion, Talcott Coal Project, Indaco Mine, and Terrace Industrial Lands are real projects that mean real jobs, stronger businesses, and stable futures for families in our regions. When we build and export, incomes rise and life becomes more affordable. That is why today we introduced a motion to pass a Canadian Sovereignty Act that will repeal federal measures that block and punish project development and reward hardworking Canadians who build and invest and protect Canadian innovation and our economic sovereignty. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Compton Stansted. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recognize that the cost of food weighs heavily on the budgets of Canadian families, including those in my riding, and our government presented concrete measures to ease this pressure. The new Canadian Grocery and Essentials benefit will put up to $1,890 back into the pockets of families in my riding. And I would also like to underscore the extraordinary work of organizations in my riding who work to combat food insecurity and strengthen food banks, local funds, and help families in my riding. So I'd like to underscore the work of Moisson Saint-François, La Cuisine Collective Haute Saint-François, Terre Libre, and others who have projects with this program that allows them to invest, that we've invested an additional $20 million in.
Every Canadian knows the feeling, standing in the grocery aisle, looking at the total and wondering, how did it get this expensive? Canada is #1 in the G7 for food inflation, and our food inflation is double what it is in the U.S. This is in large part due to the industrial carbon tax and the liberal fuel standards tax, which both drive up the tax for farmers, truckers, and everyone who brings food to the table. Families see the impact at the grocery store. Beef is up nearly 17%, apples up 10%, coffee up 41%, and baby formula up 6%. Groceries are projected to cost families an extra $1,000 compared to last year, and Canadian families just can't keep up. Conservatives are ready to fast-track real solutions, lower food prices by eliminating the industrial carbon tax, scrapping the fuel standards tax, boosting competition in grocery chains, and cutting red tape for farmers. Will the Liberal government act now or keep asking Canadian families to absorb these costs?
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Davenport, I have veterans who served in Afghanistan. When I ask them about their service, the answer is simple. They are proud to have served. They are proud Canadians. Let the record be clear. Canada is a founding member of NATO. We have participated in nearly every mission since 1949. More than 40,000 Canadians served in Afghanistan. 158 made the ultimate sacrifice. Our soldiers did not stand back. They led Allied combat operations in Kandahar, one of the most dangerous provinces in the country. And today, Canada leads NATO's largest forward presence in Latvia with 2,200 troops, standing firm against Russian aggression. Our sailors, soldiers, and aviators are second to none. Canada shows up. Canada leads. Canada keeps its word. As our Prime Minister reminded the world last week, Canada thrives because we are Canadian. To our veterans, your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Conservatives worked with this government to pass Bill C-5, Mr. Speaker, giving the Prime Minister extraordinary power to approve major projects quickly. The same spirit of cooperation should bring this House together to support the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which cuts delays for everyone and puts Canadians back in control of our destiny. The Major Projects Office is supposed to be a workaround for government delay, a fast pass for anointed projects. But the Prime Minister's words are moving faster than the work, turning the MPO into another bottleneck to prosperity. This is where our Sovereignty Act comes in. Productivity is inseparable from affordability. When we build more and export more, productivity rises. Higher productivity drives higher incomes, making life more affordable. Canadians should not be forced to choose between moving major projects forward and getting government out of the way. This is why we put forward the Sovereignty Act, and we call on all parties to support it.
The honourable member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday's news of the passing of Kirsty Duncan, the former member for Etobicoke North, reverberated throughout the offices and corridors of this Canadian Parliament. We are all grieving the loss of a thoughtful, vibrant, intelligent, strong, and kind person who served Canadians with grace and kindness. Kirsty Duncan stood out in our small class of new Liberal MPs in 2008. While kind, we learned to never mistake her kindness for her strength, her feistiness, and her principled nature. She brought academic rigor and curiosity and science to everything she did. She was a fierce defender of multiculturalism, a voice for those who face economic challenges. For athletes and artists, she called for respect, dignity, and accountability so they could work and play without fear or exploitation. She loved Highland dancing and roared with laughter when she saw me trying to do it. She was, as always, encouraging despite my limitations. To Sven, her husband, her partner in life, our hearts are broken with yours, but our resolve to live each day a little bit more like Kirsty lived hers is even stronger now. And to young women who saw in her a model for sport, dance, academics, politics, and public service, let's all commit to being just a little more noble, a little kinder. Godspeed to you, my friend Kirsty.
Oral questions. Questions orales.
Let's
the Honourable
go.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister had a photo up in a grocery store, but there was something missing. There were no prices. He asked his PMO buddies to go into the grocery store to remove all the price tags so that he could hide from Canadians how much groceries cost after 1 year, because he's doubled inflation for food, which is to the highest rate in the G7. These taxes and inflationist deficits are a hidden cost. Instead of hiding costs, why not reduce costs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Of course, that seems to be this new spirit of cooperation that we keep hearing about. Yesterday we saw cooperation. Meeting with the Premier of Ontario, for example, that was collaboration for the automotive sector, to collaborate in order to build affordable housing. I could perhaps present him to the Premier of Ontario if he wants to. He just has to let me know.
Leader of the Opposition.
Bel exemple.
Well, that's a great example of this Prime Minister. It's all illusions. He has meetings instead of having results. We need results. He promised that food would be more affordable. But 1 year later, food inflation has doubled. Doubled. It's twice as much as in the States. It's the worst food inflation in the G7. And yesterday he tried to emulate this by removing price tags in grocery stores. If prices are so terrible that he needed to hide them from Canadians, is his record as terrible as that? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, over the last few months, the government has done a lot. We are working to make the school food program permanent. Second of all, we have reduced taxes for 22 million Canadians. Yesterday, we created a new benefit that will increase the amount of money in the pockets of families, up to $1,800 a year.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister held a photo op at a grocery store in front of food, but there was just one thing missing. The price tags. He had ordered his PMO staff to literally show up early at the grocery store and remove the price tags. They're back up today. We went and checked, and they're really high. In fact, grocery prices are rising faster in Canada than in any other G7 country, twice as fast as in the States, twice as fast as when he took office. Mr. Speaker, the hidden costs that this Prime Minister imposes on inflation will not go away because he tries to take down the price tag. Why won't he take down the price?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, before I had lunch with the Premier of Ontario, I had a long meeting with the Premier of Ontario. I would like to introduce the Leader of the Opposition to the Premier of Ontario so we can learn something about cooperation, cooperation on housing, cooperation on building the best auto sector in the world, cooperation on good jobs for Ontarians and Canadians, cooperations on rising wages, which have risen faster than inflation every single month of this year.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if Canadians could eat the Prime Minister's photo op, there wouldn't be an empty stomach in the country. He's had lots of meetings. He's had signing ceremonies. He's had grand announcements and new bureaucracies. But what he hasn't delivered is real results. His biggest promise was that he was going to make food prices affordable. Since that time, food inflation has doubled, the worst in the G7. It's the result of his hidden taxes, the inflation tax from his deficits, the fuel taxes on farmers, fertilizers, and farm equipment. Why won't he, instead of trying to hide the price tag, why won't he get rid of the cost?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, here's something we don't hide. Here's something we're proud of. Over 140,000 new jobs net created since the summer. More than the United States. Here's something else. Wages rising every single month of this government faster than the rate of inflation. Here's something else. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. We put in place a national food program for 400,000 kids, making it permanent. Yesterday, we announced a benefit for 12 million Canadians, $1,800.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians have never had it so good that 2.2 million of them are lined up at food banks. One of the reasons is that we can't get our resources to market. Now, while the Prime Minister, we worked in collaboration to give him exceptional powers to get things done. Instead, he spent the time on photo ops, signing ceremonies, re-announcing projects that had long ago been approved. His new bureaucracy, the projects office, has not approved a single new project. So why won't he get out of the way and accept our plan by passing the Canadian Sovereignty Act today?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, part of how we move this country forward is collaborating with provinces and territories. The great territory of Nunavut. I'd like to welcome the Premier of Nunavut is here. One thing we've done in 6 months is agree on Grace Bay Point, which is going to open up Arctic sovereignty, open up the future of this country, make Canada strong.
I assume the Prime Minister meant that the Premier of Nunavut was in the area, not in the House. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, of course we love the Premier of Nunavut, but all the Prime Minister has is meetings, announcements, signing ceremonies, but never shovels in the ground. Never results that matter to people. Not a single pipeline approved. His project office has not approved a single new project. In fact, he hasn't removed a single pre-existing Liberal bureaucracy or single pre-existing anti-development law. All he has to do is get out of the way, adopt the Canadian Sovereignty Act so that we can get building and become self-reliant and strong.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, last time we were in this House, the member opposite stood up and had a semblance or a reduction of the MOU with Alberta. The Alberta MOU is not consistent with the Sovereignty Act. The Alberta MOU will build a pipeline to Tidewater. The Alberta MOU will build carbon capture and storage. It will build nuclear. It will build data centers. It will build our future. The Sovereignty Act will destroy it.
The honourable member for Bailey-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to wish you the best for 2026. My best wishes for everyone as well. But I have certain concerns, very tangible concerns for Quebec businesses and Canadian businesses and for jobs in Quebec and Canada. A speech doesn't generate money. It doesn't generate jobs. It doesn't protect jobs. So I understand that there are no negotiations on trade with the Americans, and there hasn't been any movement on tariffs, while President Trump is stirring up the worst of concerns. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that there are normal negotiations and cordial negotiations with Washington, D.C.? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the world has changed. Washington has changed. There's nearly nothing normal in the US now, and that's the truth. We are still having continued discussions with our American partners. I had a 30-minute conversation with the President of the United States yesterday evening, and I had discussions about trade with him. The Honourable Member for Bailey-Chambly. I understand that the US has changed, and I'm still very concerned about this. It worries me. The diversification of markets is something that we are for. We have been proposing it for years, but we don't want to renounce Quebec values that resemble Canadian values, I hope. In a predictable future, the US will still represent close to 3/4 of our trade. Jobs are at risk. Businesses are at risk. Does he guarantee that in July 2026 there will be a new trade agreement with the States? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, that is the intention of the US, Mexico and Canada. Official negotiations will begin in a few weeks. The Honourable Member for Bailey-Chambly. I therefore infer that this should be reassuring. Beyond certain issues, most export jobs in Quebec and Canada that depend on American companies, there's something serious that's happening. That's what we're asking. If the Prime Minister knows the history of Quebec less than the economy, he negotiated with China, so why not remove tariffs on Quebec pork? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the government of China has made commitments to reduce tariffs on pork, on beef, and on other Canadian foodstuffs. Second point, the agreement with China reduces tariffs on canola, and generally, this is a $700 billion market for our farmers and producers.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The Prime Minister now has sweeping powers to approve major projects, powers made possible with the help of Conservatives on this side of the House, and yet, with all of that authority, all of those promises, there's nothing done. No progress on resources, no pipelines, no action on internal trade barriers. The formula isn't complicated. When Canada builds more and exports more, Canadians earn more and life gets more affordable. So when does the action start? When do the shovels hit the ground? When do paychecks start growing for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, our colleague knows very well this government was elected to build a Canadian economy that's more resilient. This government was elected to get major projects done. That's exactly what the Prime Minister and my colleagues have done. Maybe she missed the announcement with the Premier of Ontario. Important investments, for example, in nuclear energy in Darlington. Perhaps she doesn't understand that we're investing in port infrastructure as important as Contrecoeur or Prince Rupert. And Mr. Speaker, there's good news coming in the next number of weeks, and I know she'll celebrate with us.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
He's right. We do see the announcements. We just don't see the action. And he's very good at running up the word count and terrible at filling in the details. The Prime Minister says he wants to build, and that's good. We agree. So we've done the heavy lifting for him. We put a plan right here in the House of Commons. Repeal the laws that block development, reward businesses and workers that invest in Canada, and protect Canadian innovation. The choice is simple. The Liberals can actually vote to build today, or yet again, they can vote for all talk and no action, just like he did.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we had a very important debate last year about the purported Canada Sovereignty Act. It's called a general election. The Conservatives put that to the people. We put the Prime Minister's plan to build Canada strong, to build it up with our aluminum, with our lumber, with our steel, with our unionized men and women across this country. And guess which plan Canadians selected? We expect a little more intellectual energy from that side. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue building this country very strong.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Thousands of manufacturing jobs have been lost in the last 8 months. Those are the cold, hard facts for thousands of Canadian families under this Prime Minister's leadership. And our party supported Bill C-5 because they promised growth and development. But despite the sweeping powers the Prime Minister has, no new projects have been approved and not a single barrier has been taken down. And meanwhile, Canada is losing investment, innovation and jobs to the U.S., driving down incomes and making life less affordable for Canadian families. Conservatives have made a real proposal with the Canadian Sovereignty Act to remove federal barriers to development, reward Canadians to build and invest here, and protect and raise our incomes here at home. Will they support it?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
We'll always be there to defend our people working in advanced manufacturing. Again, yesterday I was with Premier Ford. We announced what we would be doing to protect our auto workers. And I would like to remember my colleague, which I have a good relationship, to make sure that she understands how much we created jobs since the beginning of September. Actually, 54,000 jobs in September, 67,000 jobs in October, 60,000 jobs also in November, 8,000 in December. We'll continue to grow the economy and create jobs across the country.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Speaker, innovators and investors don't make decisions based on government rhetoric. They make them based on predictability, incentives, and whether a country is serious about supporting growth in this country. And right now, the government's lack of innovation strategy is pushing capital south, taking jobs and research and opportunities with it. This weakens Canada's economic sovereignty and makes life more expensive for Canadians. So since the government has no innovation plan of its own, will it support the Canadian Sovereignty Act to stop the bleeding of innovation and jobs to the U.S. and support real growth for Canadian workers?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
I'm sure that my colleague was very busy during Christmas, but she may have missed that Canada is going to be the second fastest growing economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker. That is facts, Mr. Speaker. We are building this country, but I know yesterday I had good news. I have more good news, Mr. Speaker, because in addition to helping 12 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker, with real help with food, with grocery, Mr. Speaker, there's more in what we announced yesterday. We're going to make structural change to make Canada food resilient, Mr. Speaker. We're going to invest in food security. We're going to invest in our country. We're going to make Canada strong together, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Northwest.
The International Monetary Fund reported today that Canada can grow GDP by 7% or $200 billion by removing internal trade barriers that act like a 9% tariff. Photo op MOU speeches and pizza parlor visits with premiers has not reduced interprovincial trade barriers. The Prime Minister's rhetoric doesn't match reality, and life is becoming less affordable for everyday Canadians. Will the government support the Canadian Sovereignty Act, which incentivizes and gives bonuses to provinces that build across Canada, and repeals federal measures that block and penalize development of natural resources?
Yeah, way to go, Billy.
The honourable minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad our colleague referenced the important report from the International Monetary Fund, which confirms exactly what the Prime Minister and this government has been saying for many months. Working with provinces to remove interprovincial trade barriers is one of the most significant things we can do to grow the Canadian economy. So I want to thank the Conservatives for having supported in June legislation which removed every federal barrier to internal trade in Canada. And good news, Mr. Speaker, we're meeting the premiers in Ottawa on Thursday to discuss more of what we can do to grow the economy.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
We voted for Bill C-5 so the Prime Minister could approve projects quickly, but nothing has changed. I was in Yellowknife last week. Diamond mines used to be 20% of NWT's GDP. Only 2 mines are left, and 1 will close in March. 1,600 resource-related jobs have been lost in the last 10 years. But our Canadian Sovereignty Act will repeal federal blocks and penalties to development and reward territories and provinces, businesses and workers who build and invest right here in Canada. When we export and build more, incomes go up and life becomes more affordable. Will you support it, Prime Minister?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has one of the most vibrant, important, imposing mining sectors in the world. Toronto is one of the most important mining finance centers in the world. The Build Canada Act will permit us to accelerate work on mines like Crawford, on mines like and on LNG projects, and on critical minerals, and on the Sisson mine in New Brunswick, on mines right across this country, and the minerals of the future, and nickel and minerals that keep Canadians working. Minerals is going to be a core part of our economic plan going ahead, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bow River.
Mr. Speaker, Canada used to be a nation of builders. We used to stand on our own 2 feet. Instead, Liberals are standing in our way when Canada should be strong, united and ready to build. Conservatives worked with this government to pass Bill C-5, handing them powers to approve major projects faster. But the PM's rhetoric hasn't matched reality. Not a single new project approved, not a single barrier removed. That's why today Conservatives introduced the Canadian Sovereignty Act to repeal federal measures that block and punish development, reward provinces, workers and businesses that build and invest in Canada and protect Canadian innovation.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
We are proud to support our builders. We're proud to support the skilled trades. We're proud to support Leuna, to support the carpenters, to support IBEW, to support the ironworkers. Mr. Speaker, we are building infrastructure. We are building major projects in the national interest. We're building homes, Mr. Speaker. We're using Canadian steel, Canadian lumber, Mr. Speaker, in consultation with Indigenous peoples. Mr. Speaker, we're expanding our trade. We're investing in innovation. We are building the strongest economy in the G7. When will the Conservatives get on board? When will they stop getting in the way?
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, yet another IT fiasco in the government. This time, seniors are the victims because they're struggling to receive their old age pension since the implementation of the new CREM software. Some seniors have been waiting for their pensions since May, 9 months without benefits. Other seniors have received extra checks who, even if they do not cash them, will still have an impact on the amount of their future benefits. What is the Minister doing to finally resolve this fiasco?
Every person in this country deserves to receive their benefits on time and error-free. Our department works very closely with individuals all across this country to make sure that if there are challenges in receiving their benefits, that we fix those challenges and we get those out the door as quickly as possible. And we'll continue this work, Mr. Speaker, to make sure those benefits are delivered quickly and properly.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, this is the Phoenix fiasco for seniors. And the worst part is that the federal government was alerted to this in a report from the Public Service Union back in June. So, the federal government has known since June that it is unable to pay old age pensions properly. And even today, absolutely nothing has been resolved. How much longer will pensioners have to wait before the Liberals finally take this problem seriously?
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à la Chambre.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to be a bit sceptical when it comes to the MP's fire. IT bugs happen. Here we have a successful piece of software that has updated a piece of software that dated from the 70s, and so now seniors can self-serve online and over the phone. Payments are even quicker. If there are issues, we'll iron them out. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, it's been almost a year since the Prime Minister took office, and despite all his fine rhetoric, ever more Quebecers no longer have the money to pay rent. In Quebec, 20% of Quebecers have admitted to being unable to pay their rent for at least 1 month. In my region, about 30%. In Montreal, about 25%. The Prime Minister promised to get things done at an unprecedented pace since the Second World War. Can you say why the only things that are moving so fast are grocery prices and rent? The Honourable Minister of Finance. I know it's Tuesday, but we still have great news to share because my colleague must have misheard us yesterday. We've announced a historic announcement with the Prime Minister of Canada, the new Canada Groceries and Essentials benefit. Mr. Speaker, 12 million Canadians, people in his riding, who will now receive more money in their pockets to fight against the cost of living. On this side of the House, we're convinced that by building strong communities, we'll build a strong Canada together. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, I find that a bit funny because the same Minister in Finance who said in 2023,
5 new measures will stabilize food price soon.
As you know, the Honourable Member cannot name a member of this House. The member may continue.
Champagne price, Mr. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, this minister said that prices were going to stabilize. Why did he hide Canadians that stabilization for him means we're going to stabilize until it's double what the inflation rate is in the States? We have the highest food inflation in the G7. When they speak, why does that not never lead to true actions for Canadians? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, instead of trying to find quotes, he should watch TV, because yesterday he would have seen that with the Prime Minister of Canada, we announced this new benefit for that reason. Perhaps it seems anodyne for my colleague, but $1,800 makes a hell of a difference for Canadian families. This is a serious measure for a serious moment in our history. And I know that my colleagues can speak during the answer, but people watching us back home know that on this side of the House, we'll always be here to help them in difficult times. The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, 1 out of 5 Quebecers find it hard to pay their rent, which is causing young families to struggle. In regions, municipalities are trying to do what they can. In Baie-Saint-Paul, taxes have been reduced to try and reduce rent increases in the Melbay. Municipal spending has been reduced to increase purchasing power. Can the Liberal government finally realise that the last 10 years of policies have harmed purchasing power, have fuelled the fires of inflation, and will they be wise for once, and will they work with the Conservatives to implement a true plan to make life more affordable? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of State for Nature. Mr. Speaker, one cannot control every single price in every single store. We know that there are significant challenges for Canadians. I'd like to quote the Mayor of Quebec, who said that what is important to do in difficult situations is to give people the choice. What we are currently doing is giving purchasing power so that they can make choices. That will help 12 million Canadians. It will give couples over $1,800 this year and $1,400 for the years to come. 900 for individuals and 700 in the years to come.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, in 2026, a family of 4 is going to have to pay $1,700 more for food, more than last year, and that's affecting everyone. But after provoking inflation with their policies, the Liberals are feeling bad. Yesterday, they announced apology checks for some families to give them a little bit of money to help them pay groceries that are far too expensive. When will this Liberal government recognize the failure of their inflationary policies and finally work with the Conservatives to lower the cost of living? It's time to give some breathing room to Quebecers and Canadians. The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Services. Mr. Speaker, our government has passed new affordability measures. Families in my riding are going to see a direct impact, like the dad who's going to be able to pay for lunch for his kid, is going to be able to pay for skates, for tournaments. These are things that are going to affect Quebecers and Canadians every day. Even in my family, my uncle, my cousin are going to hunt for traditional food with help in their pockets to ensure a better quality of life. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our seniors built our country. They've paid taxes their entire lives. And some have to wait up to 8 months before receiving their OAS. That's unacceptable. There are data that's missing. There are millions of seniors who saw their files go to a new software system and things aren't working very well. Since 2015, hundreds of thousands of new bureaucrats have been hired and things aren't working. Bureaucrats are saying that training hasn't been sufficient for the new software. We need to see courage. Who in this Liberal government is going to have the courage to stand up and fix the problem for our seniors? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, obviously, if seniors have had problems with their OAS checks, that's unfortunate. The member should speak to the government and we will try to fix the problem. But listen, that's enough. We transformed an IT system. It's a huge project. We replaced software from the 1970s with new software which allows Canadians to self-manage their own files, to sign up for OAS. So, that's enough, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the fear campaigns from the opposition.
From Markham, Unionville.
Mr. Speaker, while I now sit on a different side of the House, my priority remains the same, standing up for my constituents and making sure that concerns are acted on. Last fall, I held a crime prevention town hall in Markham, Unionville. What I heard clearly and repeatedly was concern about auto thefts and home invasions and the impact these crimes have on families' sense of safety. Mr. Speaker, can the minister outline how Canada's new government is strengthening public safety and ensuring
Who's taking? You can okay. The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
I want to welcome my colleague to the government benches, where he's already making a real impact, Mr. Speaker. In 2024, we had an auto theft summit and created a plan, Mr. Speaker. That's right. And thanks to the dedication of law enforcement across this country and focused federal action, we are seeing a downward trend on auto thefts across this country. But on top of that, Mr. Speaker, we've presented a bail and sentencing reform, which is going to make people who commit auto theft or home invasions face serious jail time, Mr. Speaker. Right. This is serious leadership for a serious matter, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for New Tecumseh, Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, just last week, the Prime Minister stood at a podium in Davos in a room full of billionaires and global elites and lectured the world about
From the top, please.
Picking up from where I left off, Mr. Speaker, lectured the world about honesty and naming reality. Well, here's a reality check for him. Canada now leads the G7 in food inflation. Families here at home are paying more for groceries because of Liberal policies that tax fuel, fertilizer, and food production. If the Prime Minister thinks honesty matters, will he admit today his policies are driving up food prices?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, the first thing, Mr. Speaker, is I know we want to acknowledge the members' acknowledgement of our Prime Minister's fantastic speech
Right on.
at the World Economic Forum. I know Canadians were very relieved when the Leader of the Opposition said, never, ever, ever shall I or any of my ministers ever go to Davos to that World Economic Forum. You wouldn't want to run across the President of the United States or the President of Ukraine or members of the economic or any of the investors in Canada. So
the Honourable Member for Newtecumseg-Willenbury.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians wouldn't need any rebates if the Liberals hadn't driven up grocery prices in the first place. So long as they keep imposing the industrial carbon tax, the 17 cents a litre fuel tax on Canadian food production, prices will keep increasing. Conservatives are ready to fast-track bills that will reverse the highest food inflation in the G7. Will this government stand with us, introduce measures to make food affordable again, or will they keep just driving up food prices?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, despite that bluster, we're focused on affordability for Canadians. We cut taxes for 22 million of them. We cut the consumer carbon tax. We cut the GST for first-time homebuyers. And just yesterday, our Prime Minister announced the groceries and essentials benefit, putting up to $1,900 in the pockets of working families. Time to stop the obstruction. Let us build Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, food security is national security. Statistic Canada confirms food inflation has hit 6.2%, the highest in the G7. It now costs $17,600 to feed a family of four, $1,000 more than last year. With food prices rising twice as fast as in the U.S., Canadians know why. The industrial carbon, fuel, and packaging taxes drive up the cost of farm equipment, fertilizer, and trucking. Will the government move now to eliminate these taxes, boost grocery competition, and cut the red tape on farmers? Yes or no?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, that member's riding wants to know why he voted against every affordability measure that we have put forward. Mr. Speaker, just yesterday, our Prime Minister announced a groceries and essentials benefit that will put up to $1,900 in the pockets of working families. Time for that member and his party to stop the obstruction, get behind us, and build Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Quebec-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, people in my riding across this country are tired of them taking far more money out of their back pockets than putting in their front pockets. Food banks now see 2.2 million visits every month. Food prices are rising twice as fast as when the Prime Minister first took office. The Liberals' own reports admit that fuel standard taxes add 7 cents a litre today and rising to 17 cents, hitting rural Canadians the hardest. I ask again, will the government finally act to remove these taxes, increase grocery competition, and support farmers? Or will it keep forcing Canadians to pay the highest food inflation in the G7?
Honourable Minister of Women and Gender Equality.
Mr. Speaker, speaking of food banks Canada welcomes the introduction of the Canada Green Groceries and Essentials benefit, calling it an important step to help people facing rising affordability pressures. While the members opposite obstruct real progress, we understand the affordability that is top of mind for Canadians, and this is going to help 12 million Canadians. That's incredible, and that's nearly $1,900 that will help additional support for families of four. That will help mothers with groceries groceries, helping them with essentials at home, and helping with their kids at school. Mr. Speaker, this is real progress and real change.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Mr. Speaker, stats can confirm what Canadians feel every single day. Life is more expensive. Fact, Canada is now leading the G7 in food inflation. Fact, food prices in Canada are rising twice as fast as they are in the U.S. Fact, nearly 2.2 million people visit food banks in Canada in a single month. Mr. Speaker, rising food prices are hitting Canadians hard. Conservatives will support legislation that cuts red tape on farmers so they and Canada can grow. The question is, will the government table it?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, for a party that talked about cost of living and helping families for months and months and months to stand up and fight against things that will help families, it's just kind of hard to believe. But Canadians are watching, and they're watching from the riding of that member, fighting against the very things that will help. And let me tell you what the Roots to Harvest Community Food Centre said in my riding. They said, as a community organization, we look forward to providing predictability at a time when community members are struggling to meet their day-to-day needs. That's how we are partnering with organizations and Canadians to make sure that they have the safety net they deserve, and so does her riding.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyendinaga.
Our goal, Mr. Speaker, is to help stop the struggle. Taxes like the industrial carbon tax and the fuel standards tax are directly contributing to the rising cost of food. They're directly and negatively impacting our farmers' ability to affordably grow, produce, and transport the food we need to survive. Removing these taxes will help Canadian families afford groceries and farmers to produce them.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, will the government introduce legislation to eliminate the industrial carbon tax, eliminate the fuel standards tax, and cut red tape for farmers?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change and Nature.
Mr. Speaker, there actually was a study about the impact of the industrial carbon price on food prices, and the result was that it was about zero. So if we're going to talk about real things, let's talk about how we're going to help farmers. Let's actually talk about how the canola farmers support the clean fuel regulations. Are they standing against the canola farmers? We are there to support our farmers. We are there to support Canadians. And I hope that they will be there to support our groceries and essentials benefit, because that will be helping 12 million Canadians in all of our communities.
Yes. The Honourable Member for Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are determined to keep their industrial carbon tax.
Secretary of State for Seniors.
Low-income seniors in Esquimalt-Saanich-Sooke have been asking their government to take action to help fight the rising cost of groceries, and we listened. We're helping with up to $950 of food and goods for low-income single seniors with the groceries and essentials benefit. We are also tackling the root causes by developing a national food insecurity strategy to improve seniors' access to affordable, nutritious food.
Sir.
Meanwhile, the Conservatives are blocking everything we do, and they have no good reason for it, just fake news.
The Honourable Member for Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, everyone likes a check in the mail, but those checks are written on borrowed money, and they're going to have to pay it back with interest.
Yeah, that's right.
And Mr. Speaker, last week we learned what these Liberals have been denying all along. For food inflation is real, and it's the worst in the G7. So while Canadians are struggling to put food on the table, a nice little check in the mail may help with a week's groceries. But it's borrowed money, and they'll have to pay it back with interest. Will the government finally do the right thing and axe the hidden carbon taxes so Canadians can have some real relief?
That's great.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, we are controlling what we can, and we are helping Canadians where they are. We have increased OAS for seniors over 75. We have protected OAS, ensuring it's indexed to inflation, and we just guaranteed that low-income seniors will get the help that they need to fight rising food costs with the new groceries and essentials benefit. It will buy up to $950 worth more of food for a single low-income senior, and we are also tackling the root causes by developing a national food insecurity strategy to improve seniors' access to affordable and nutritious food. And what are Conservatives doing? They're trying to block the real action that Canadians are asking for.
The honourable member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are shocked by their grocery bills. That's because Canada is seeing the worst food inflation in the G7. Paychecks can't keep up with prices, yet the Liberals are burdening our farms with fuel taxes and red tape. We need affordability from farm to table. Conservatives are ready to fast-track any bill that will reverse the highest inflation in the G7. Will Liberals immediately introduce legislation that cuts red tape and taxes for farmers?
The Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. There was actually a study on the impact that industrial carbon pricing has on the cost of food, and the result of that study was that it has a 0% impact on the cost of groceries, Mr. Speaker. The number one cause of food inflation is actually climate change, Mr. Speaker, and you only have to talk to one farmer to realize that, Mr. Speaker. I recognize fully that food costs too much these days, so our government is here with the Groceries and Essentials benefit, a rebate that the lower-income Canadians will receive 4 times a year to assist with these additional grocery prices. The Conservatives have a choice to make. Are they going to support affordability for Canadians or keep standing up for the wealthiest Canadians?
The honourable member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, in Quebec, the need for housing and infrastructure is particularly pressing. Our government has acted by putting in place targeted investments to increase access to affordable housing, to support municipalities in their infrastructure projects, and to help build communities. Can the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities please inform this House of the concrete measures put in place in Quebec and explain how they are improving affordability for housing and the quality of infrastructure for communities across Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Terrebonne for her question. Our government and Quebec have concluded an agreement with Build Canada Homes to accelerate the construction of housing and ensure that Quebec's priorities are being met. And with the infrastructure agreement linked to housing, almost $1 billion will be used to modernize the infrastructure necessary for development for new housing across Quebec. It's time to build. It's time to build together.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gateway.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are living in fear in their own neighbourhoods as extortion runs rampant right across the country. In British Columbia alone, extortion has increased by nearly 500%, and yet the Liberals continue to ignore this crisis. So much so that just yesterday, the City Council of Surrey desperately passed a unanimous motion asking this government to take some action. No more empty announcements, no more meetings or town halls. Canadians need action. Why is this government ignoring the safety of Canadians? When will the Liberals finally work with us to bring in mandatory minimum sentences for extortion to help protect Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is a real and pressing problem in this country, and that member has an opportunity to do something about it. There are laws being debated in Parliament right now that would make it harder for people charged with extortion-related offences to be released on bail, that would result in deeper and longer sentences for people who are convicted of extortion, and would give new tools to law enforcement who are asking this House to pass the Strong Borders Act on lawful access so they can investigate, charge, and prosecute criminals. Mr. Speaker, the thing that these different measures have in common is that the Conservative Party of Canada has been obstructing them for months. Get with the program, support these important bills, and bring extortion to an end in Canada.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, as a former police officer, I know a crisis when I see one. Extortion is out of control. Businesses and families are being threatened, shot at, and shaken down daily. Yet Liberals deny there's a crisis and are dragging their feet. Some municipalities are even asking for a state of emergency to be declared. When will this government stop their hug-a-thug policy, work with Conservatives, restore mandatory minimums, and repeal the catch and release laws, Bill C-5 and C-75? For crying out loud, do something about this crisis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, through the chair. The Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, In this country, we have life in prison for extortion, and we have mandatory minimum sentences when extortion is committed by organized criminals or with a firearm, Mr. Speaker. We are taking this issue very, very seriously, Mr. Speaker. That's why I've crisscrossed across this country, finding out what is needed and where the gaps are. And, Mr. Speaker, everywhere I've gone, police enforcement agencies have asked for lawful access. That was the second measure that we brought to this Parliament, Mr. Speaker, but the Conservatives have been obstructing it every single step of the way. What do they have against catching extortionists, Mr. Speaker?
Here, here. The Honourable Member for Brampton West.
Mr. Speaker, extortion is exploding and terrorizing communities across Canada, such as Brampton and Surrey. Homes and businesses are being threatened and shot at. Families are living in fear. Some residents have recently fled the country with their families in fear of their lives. This crime surge cannot become the new normal. Canadians are paying the price. Canadians deserve safety, not excuses. When will this Liberal government take real action to stop extortion, crack down on organized crime, and keep Canadians safe?
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the rise in extortion-related threats, shootings and intimidation across Ontario and the Lower Mainland is a grave concern. I know how much fear it's causing in families, businesses and our communities. Our government is advancing expanded legislative powers so law enforcement has the tools they need to effectively combat extortion and organized criminal networks. Political opponents in Surrey put aside their differences to act with urgency. I'm asking the Conservative counterparts stop obstructing necessary legislation and work with us to provide practical solutions. Our communities need to feel safe at home.
That's right. The Honourable Member for Milton East, Halton Hills South.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday our Prime Minister and Minister of Finance made an historic announcement outlining concrete steps the government is taking to help life be more affordable for Canadians. Residents in my riding of Milton East, Halton Hills South support our government's ambitious plan to strengthen and diversify the economy, but they know that doing so requires both long-term investments and meaningful immediate supports. They want to know what actions our government is taking to make life more affordable and if they can count on all members of this House to put politics aside and support affordability for Canadians.
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
My colleague for a great question, Mr. Speaker. In fact, yesterday was an historic moment where we supported Canadians. Mr. Speaker, I can hear the Conservative. They're so happy they're going to put that in the householder, Mr. Speaker. They're going to say to Canadians that now a family of four, Mr. Speaker, will receive $1,890 more to meet the moment, Mr. Speaker. I know the Conservatives in their heart know this is good. They're going to put that in their householder. We're going to help them, Mr. Speaker. Let's build Canada strong together.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, to start the year off on the right foot, I'd like to... Yeah, the member for Markham still owes me $100, so I can't close off my budget for the Conservative Christmas party because he hasn't paid that debt. The member knows that for a question to be considered pertinent, we can't refer to another member, only to government business. So I will give the member a second try because he's a new member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After 10 years of chaotic and inflationist Liberal management, the cost of housing has more than doubled in Canada. Yes, you heard right, it's doubled. In Beauce, one family out of five can't afford their rent, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when are the Liberals going to stop feeding inflation? When are they going to work with us? And finally, deliver a real plan for affordability? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, there's still good news. I know that my Conservative friends need good news. I have good news for my friend. 4 farmers in Beauce, Mr. Speaker. In yesterday's announcement there's going to be structural measures, they'll be happy. I spoke with the president of the UPA to ask how we could increase food security in Canada, Mr. Speaker. We're going to work with our farmers. We're going to work with people in the agriculture sector. We're going to work with distributors. We're going to ensure that we have food security across the country, and it's going to mean good news for people in Beauce.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, New Democrats just returned from Rankin Inlet, where we witnessed the challenges facing Canadians in the north. We heard stories of 12, 15, 17 people living in a two-bedroom home, of folks on housing wait lists for decades, of extreme food prices from $15 for onions to $28 for orange juice, where there is no hospital, not enough jobs, and unreliable internet. People are experiencing similar issues in communities across Canada. When is this government going to take real action to address them?
Here. Excellent question. The Honourable Minister for Northern and Arctic Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians living across the country are going to be benefiting from our new Canada Groceries and Essential benefit. This includes people in Northern and Arctic Canada. This means a family of 4 will receive $1,890 this year. This is significant in the North. This is in addition to increases in the child tax benefit. It's an increase to the National School Food Program, $10 a day daycare. We're taking steps to reduce the cost of living in the North, and we'll continue to work with Northerners to do so.
The honourable member for Nunavut.
Nunavut are seeking reassurances from this government. Nunavut deserve to know how they will be engaged in keeping the Arctic secure. They deserve to be protected and to participate in their own safety. Inuit have the expertise, knowledge, and skills to do so. The federal government creates too many barriers, like not investing in housing and not feeding families, keeping them in poverty. Will the Liberals invest in the people of the Arctic so Inuit, too, can keep the Arctic secure?
Here. The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we are working together with our colleagues in the Arctic. We're working together. I had the chance to meet with the Premier of Nunavut just this morning. We're discussing a holistic approach to how we're going to invest in terms of defence, our capacities. Obviously, operational needs will be important, but so will dual-use and multi-use investments as we go forward. So these are the kinds of details we're working out. I would appreciate the members' thoughtful, practical suggestions to get it right.
I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Lois Thompson, Premier of Prince Edward Island.
Who cares?
Also draw the attention of members to the...
Anyhow, gang, we're going to wrap it up right there. Thank you all for tuning in. Pretty exciting. Mark Carney and his lame Liberals are frustrating to watch, man. That Stephen McKinnon is really something else. Anyhow, we're back tomorrow, same time, same place. We've got a pre-show that we'll have lined up that cross over into question period right after that. Just again, like to say thank you to everybody for tuning in. We're back same time, same place tomorrow, and we'll have a video that will drop out this evening. And that is it. It's back on. Let's see where this goes. We need an election here in Canada. We like to go out on our little romper room outro, so we're going to do that. If we can get to it.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey nanny loo. Tip tap, pitter pat, Granny cat too. Rooty toot, Kimble, loopy loo. Bobbity stompity, romper room and friends.
Well, yeah, we're out for now. Smash the like, hit subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. Share this with somebody if you enjoyed it. Ciao for now. Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll be back for more. Get your Canadian federal politics.